Hello and welcome to another anime lore and fury video. I'm Shergog, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at what the undead overlord Ainz Ooal Gown thought about the new world he found himself in. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, and say my thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's take a look at the topic at hand. Ainz Ooal Gown was transported or reincarnated into a new world in the form of his in-game avatar, an undead overlord. This is a classic isekai scenario, but unlike in most isekai, where we don't really learn what the protagonist truly thinks about the new world, aside from a general statement like, "Wow, magic is awesome!" Ainz Ooal Gown provides more detailed opinions and behaviors on the matter, and he's also way more introspective. Now, first and foremost, as I've mentioned in other videos, Ainz Ooal Gown's view of the new world is very positive. However, this positivity is not merely because it's a fantasy world with magic in it, but rather because this world is not completely ruined. Ainz, or rather Satoru Suzuki, did not live in our own time, in modern Japan, a country with many mountains, still sprouting thick vegetation, and generally well-preserved nature. Instead, he lived in the year 2138, where Earth had become a veritable cesspool. Nature, in the traditional sense, no longer exists. The only things that can survive in the utterly devastated environment are a few microorganisms, and plants and animals are nowhere to be found, on land or in the seas. Moreover, the rain is oily, the sun is almost always obscured by a dense smog layer, and the air itself would be practically deadly without a gas mask. And even with a gas mask, one might need to replace one's own lungs around the age of 30. In other words, practically any other fantasy world, including the one from Warhammer Fantasy, would probably have been considered better by Ainz Ooal Gown, based on this alone. And when he left the Grey Tomb for the first time in the new world, he flew into the sky and beheld the new world and its unspoiled beauty, and he was so in awe that he compared it to a treasure chest full of sparkling jewels. But Demiurge misinterpreted this statement, because Ainz then talked about his past and how Ulbert Elaine Odell once said how great it would be to conquer the world. And Demiurge linked both statements together, which Ainz inadvertently made. However, while Ainz was genuinely thrilled by this new world, one canon should truly appreciate that if he had family, children, or parents in his old world, he would move heaven and earth to return to them, even with all of these challenging conditions of living in this grey, desolate, and radioactively contaminated wasteland that our Earth had become. But Ainz is single and without any family, so he chose to stay and not return, even if he one day could. Nevertheless, his experience from the old world have greatly influenced him. And here Overlord deserves praise for not falling into the cliché of environmental destruction, industry darkness, and so on and so forth that is always associated with every single Dark Lord. The whole thing can be found in many stories, most of which have been more or less inspired by the Lord of the Rings. And since Tolkien experienced industrialization and the associated pollution it brings, as well as the trench warfare of World War I, which is by the way reflected, for example, in his description of the plains of Gorgoroth, through which Sam and Frodo had to transport the One Ring, while Saruman's rapid industrialization and the burning of the forest of Fangorn reflected Tolkien's feeling about industrialization, and since The Lord of the Rings became the template for countless fantasy worlds, every Dark Lord became associated with these themes. That's why I find it so refreshing that Ainz is the exact opposite. Having lived through how his world deteriorated, he wanted to protect the new world from the same fate. He would not tolerate such a large and heavy industry that had plunged his world into the abyss, which is made a lot easier by the fact that the new world is magical and his old one is not. So if a country were to industrialize, perhaps even to produce enough weapons and armor to fight against Nazarick and the Sorcerer Kingdom, Ainz would likely intervene. But Ainz Ooal Gown's view of the world goes even further. He recognized that it can be very brutal. For example, when patrolling the edges of the Great Forest with the Swords of Darkness, facing a warband of ogres and goblins, he realized that it was not just a game. Real blood would be shed today, lives would be taken, and yet we got no real reaction from Ainz except this simple acknowledgement. And this is because Ainz suffers or benefits depending on how you want to call it, and of course depending on the situation, from his emotional dampener. Being a byproduct of his immunity to mind control, it downregulates any strong emotions, be it joy, sorrow, anger, or pain. Therefore, Ainz could fight and kill the ogre, or watch impassively as the Sunlight Scripture, disguised as the Knights of Barut, wiped out an entire village, almost to the last man. And Ainz recognized that he would actually react differently to it, that he was supposed to react differently to it, that this was not normal. He should have felt fear, disgust, shock, anger, and essentially everything else but this cold indifference. And when Ainz took his first life and felt nothing, he realized that he had become an undead overlord in spirit as well as in body. In other words, under different circumstances, meaning with free emotions, Ainz Ooal Gown would likely recognize, alongside all of this beauty that the new world holds, the everyday horrors that grip it, and be likely repulsed by them. In other words, if Ainz was a human, the world would seem to be very different for him, and perhaps much, much crueler than even his old world. And the outro from Season 3, Silent Solitude, says it too, that the world is full of sin, that deceit and violence is commonplace, and that it all becomes too much for Ainz, causing him to shut down and drown out the noise. So therefore, I am really interested in what Ainz would have thought about the new world without this emotional dampener. But that is another topic for another day. For today, that's pretty much it. And now it's your turn. Let me know what you think about the new world, about Ainz's reaction to it, and while you type, let me quickly say thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel, and special thanks to Arder Daddy Arder, ASK, Bad Guy Yee, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Phil Ralshivan, Guy with Dead Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Loveraiser, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, oh hell no, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Peripentum, Personage, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Karakos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rocket Smasher, T.E. Wang, The Shawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenukai, and Zonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon under my next video.